Things appear to be going from bad to worse for disgraced Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, who was arrested on Monday by the police and handed over to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, over his alleged involvement in illicit drug trafficking. As if this was not bad enough, on Wednesday, the Punch newspaper reported that police investigations had revealed how members of an international crime syndicate led by Ramon Abass, also known as Hushpuppi, paid 235 million naira to Kyari's younger brother. The probe also showed that Kyari equally funneled 44 million naira to his brother's bank account in multiple transactions. However, the investigation, according to Punch, failed to disclose whether Kyari's brother was acting as a proxy for his embattled older brother, who is still in the custody of the NDLEA. The investigative report, which was submitted to the Attorney General of the Federation, showed that a total of 279 million naira and 120,000 flowed into the younger Kyari's bank account at various times from the cyber scam syndicate members Efe Martins, lead coordinator, Sikiru Adekoya, Usman Ibrahim, and Hussaini Allah. Now joining us to discuss the unfolding sordid saga involving Kyari and his accomplices in the police force is Professor Kemi Rotimi, a history lecturer at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and a leading scholar on policing and the Nigerian police force. Welcome to the show, Professor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, Prof. Good to have you on the morning show. Well,
thank you.
From Super Cup to Cup Puppy, we're told. Abba Kyari, DCP, in 2019 was named Silverbird Man of the Year. About a year later, he received a standing ovation from the House of Representatives of Nigeria in recognition of what was considered his heroic efforts as the head of the intelligence response team set up by the Inspector General of Police. And now he finds himself in a situation where he's been accused of association with scammers, and he himself getting directly involved. And also the Drug Law Enforcement Agency has also accused him of being a member of a drug cartel. What's your take on all of this to start with? And how bad is it for him personally, for the police as an institution, and for Nigeria?
Once again, good morning and thank you. How bad is it? Very bad, but not extraordinary, and not unprecedented. Many brilliant police officers all over the world get enmeshed in this kind of super mess. They are super cop, but they also get involved in super mess. And you know, their unraveling often comes from the lower cadre NCOs who work with them, who know the details of some of these things, dirty things that they do. But they often overreach themselves. That is, these super cop are also super criminals. When you see, when you hear it, oh, the man is a crime buster and super cop. Abba Kyari's case has shown, that's the most recent, but not unprecedented, that he could also be a super criminal. And what looks like the efficiency in crime busting is that he's a member of a syndicate. And then you can easily say, oh, but why are you doing this? This is too much now. I will arrest you, but be careful. So it is not unprecedented. So for Abba Kyari, it's an unfortunate period in his life as a police officer. But in the Nigerian context, one of the things that give away super cop or also super criminal is the lifestyle, the consumption habits. We've been told of the estate in Maiduguri. Now, where Tudu was reading what looks like the précis of his ordeal, we're talking about 44 million naira wired into the account of his brother. For goodness sake, who is Abba Kyari? But that is the way of mere mortals who get drunk with so-called celebrity status. And before this time, any close observer of the Abba Kyari phenomenon will have guessed, like some of us did, that he's likely to also be a super criminal. Look at the company he keeps. one of the Uba brothers. Then look at the guy who buried his mother in some golden casket and all that the other day. And if you notice his expressions, they are always his brothers. Now, have you ever heard of Abba Kyari being associated with more decent human beings? Most of the people he cavorts with are people with soiled hands. Now, but then, because to do a good job as a police officer, one must also concede you need to penetrate the criminal world. So it's a thin line between being a super cop and being a super criminal. So Abba Kyari has fallen from one to the other. Very thin, slippery slope. It's unfortunate, but that is the way it is. But it is not unprecedented. So I've been amused by this. We decorated House of Rep. Who are the people in the House of Rep? Those who have been giving him awards have been looking at the face value, and they cannot do more than that. They are not police officers. The one that really you can say we should question, because you also talked about the institution. This man is under so much heavy satellite, but he was in Maiduguri just a little over a week for a wedding of the son or daughter of the IGP. Look, for goodness sake, if things were normal. If he was the one who proposed to attend, the IGP would have told him, oh boy, not now. If it was the IGP who invited him, that is unfortunate. And I will fast forward. The head of the Metropolitan Police in London just resigned. The mayor, because the mayor told her, I've lost confidence in you. But here you have an IG who is inviting a super cop who is clearly not a super criminal or heavily tainted. Because he won't be a criminal until he's convicted, right? Because I'm conscious I'm talking to two lawyers from Abeokuta City. Now, but the head of the Metropolitan Police resigned because the mayor said he had lost confidence in her. And she took it in good grace. But the IG invited Abba Kyari. And then a few days later, after the show, NDLEA came up with his own. So I think I've said enough on this.
Thank you, sir. It is indeed not unprecedented. There was a similar case in the UK with a corrupt detective selling seized drugs that also involved his brother in that crime. But my question for you, sir, is what exactly does it take to get fired from the police force? Surely with all that has been, alleged against Abba Kyari, his punishment should have gone further than what's been reported on the cover of one of today's papers. Police demotes DCP Abba Kyari to Assistant Commissioner of Police, ACP. I'm sure the Nigerian public will want to know exactly why the punishment seems so lenient, which is probably what led to the Police Service Commission asking for a second panel of inquiry to, within 2 weeks, give another, conduct another investigation. Obviously, all of this has now been superseded by events with the NDLEA. But why was he not fired in the first case? Why was he still allowed to operate within the system? And like you said, why was he invited to that wedding that he appeared at?
No, he was not fired because, again, these things happen. Well, what do I mean? If you recall, in the Metropolitan case that I have just cited, some dirty deals conducted by police officers, and then the woman was just sitting down there and would appear to be condoning. And you remember when she resigned and then when the mayor spoke, it was clear that she was being punished or asked to go for, look, you are getting too lenient with your officers who are misbehaving. These things happen occasionally, and we are all human beings. You have an officer who is beloved by the bosses. It could be the case in the Abba Kyari thing. The only excuse nobody can make for the leadership of the Nigerian police force is at the moment the Hushpuppi thing had broken, Abba Kyari had lost every privilege that should attach to him as police officer, even being involved. Even for becoming a conduit for Agbada and Babariga, collector Abba Kyari tailoring outfit. That is enough to even push him aside. But you hinted at something that I need to comment on. What I would call the ordeal of the leadership of the Police Service Commission now. It's been a rough ride for those who have led that commission in the last few years. Ironically, the troubled period happened to be the period when former police officers have been leading the Police Service Commission. Parasayade, Mr. Michael Kiro, and then you have Mr. Muslim Smith now. A good number of the fight around the issue of recruitment and who should recruit and who should not recruit. That's a topic for another day, because I know what the thing should be. But the Police Service Commission has been trying to do actually one of its core mandates, which is the discipline of officers below the rank of IG. Because anybody from the IG down, the Police Service Commission can discipline. But you can see the leadership of the MPF contesting space with the leadership of the Police Service Commission. And then, like the Bible say, if you do this to wet wood or whatever, what do you do to the dry wood? This you have a Police Service Commission being led by a former IGP, who, when he was leaving the force in 2002, the current incumbent probably will be maybe an AC or CSP. But that's the way it is. Truth be told, there's a new sheriff in town, there's a new leader for the MPF, and he will want to assert his authority. So I cannot defend the leadership of the police for still condoning or making it look like they are slapping Abba Kyari with just on the wrist. No, Abba Kyari should have been left thoroughly aside and put in the cooler. I will not convicted him. There's a limit to which you can go. But if they are not talking about reduction in rank on the basis of the Hushpuppi matter or on the new one of the drug, the Hushpuppi matter is enough to ask Abba Kyari to just go home. Well, you're still keeping him in service? For goodness sake, come off it. Abba Kyari has been thoroughly messed up. And usually, when a super cop is thoroughly messed up or has thoroughly messed himself up, he lives with the consequences. That's what has happened even in the case of Britain. Andrew misbehaved. The old woman knew that this boy has messed me up. Removed all of his titles. That is the way this thing should be. But we still have this thing about some guy trying to be nice to boys who have been nice to them. And then everybody, tongues are wagging. Maybe they don't want to punish him severely because he might squeal. It doesn't happen that way. Once the guy is in the dungeon, there is not much room to squeal. If the bosses know what they are doing. If Abba Kyari had been fired the moment the Hushpuppi thing had been even tangentially established, Abba Kyari will be somewhere now singing in the bush. But they are still keeping him around. That's why it's still, to use Ruben's expression, jollophing and enjoying pepper soup.
Prof, two quick things. Some of the papers are quoting a police report today, and they're saying that when Abba Kyari appeared before the investigating panel, he made a point that it is IPOB and the Eastern Security Network, ESN, that are behind his travails because of encounters that he had had with them in the past as police officer. Could there possibly be any connection in that regard? And then secondly, what happened to civil service rules? Because the man we're talking about here is a civil servant. Once upon a time in this country, we had civil service rules whereby civil servants were not allowed to live above their means. In fact, if a civil servant bought a vehicle in those days that was outside the range of that person's salary, it could be put to task to come and explain where he or she got that money from. What happened? Those rules, are they still there? Or the Nigerian government just decided to abandon those civil service and public service rules?
I'll start from the last question so that you will jog my memory about the first. Those of you who romanticize the past, you make me laugh, but I will excuse it. You are not a historian. You are a drama chieftain. There has never been a time that was El Dorado. No. But I won't reveal to you aspects of my inaugural lecture. Because that way, the beauty of it will be lost. If you want to listen direct, copy April 12th. Otherwise, when the deal is done, I'll send it to you. Never. Civil service rules. If the civil service was that sparkling clean, why the purge of 1975 when Murtala came? Have we all forgotten so soon? But anyway, I don't like lazy journalists. How can, if Abba Kyari went to any panel and talked about IPOB being behind this ordeal, should any educated journalist report that kind of thing? It is idiotic. I mean, the facts that have been established. Hushpuppi is a Yoruba guy. Abba Kyari is from Borno. Where is the link with IPOB? And what has he done in the East that is extraordinary? A man is doing his job for which we pay him to catch criminals. The policeman is detailed to catch criminals. And one of the core things about policing, a policeman, police officer, is one man invested with state authority to affect the freedom of another. That's what policing is at bottom. A man invested with state authority to affect the freedom of another. Now, Abba Kyari has been doing whatever. Abba Kyari is not the one talking about IPOB. That's more about the army dealing with IPOB. Abba Kyari, some criminals the other day, Nimo, yes, he cracked the thing. But now that the Yoruba say the wind has blown and we can see the anus of the fowl. So we know now. Are we sure that some of the dead criminals were not the ones funneling money to Abba Kyari that he has been using to build estate? What we can query is the condonation by bosses of these officers who come by grief to have allowed them for so long. An officer is building an estate in Maiduguri. Maiduguri is not one remote village. And people know that is Abba Kyari building the thing. And the police authorities haven't cared to say, oh boy, what is your rank now? How come we have this? So there's condonation. But condonation has always been there. It was there before, it was there at the beginning of colonial rule, it was there after independence, and it is still there today, and will be there forever. But when the criminal or the officer who has transgressed is caught, you punish the officer, and then let life go on. Some will learn some lessons from that. But when condonation is the order of the day, that's what ruins it. How does the incumbent IG defend the presence of Abba Kyari at the wedding of his child? It's difficult. What are we talking about here? So, but condemnation has always been there. Yes.
Thank you, Prof. But since we have you here, we have to ask, or well, I have to ask, your thoughts on that unfortunately familiar phenomenon, the ASUU strike, which has started again. It's supposed to be a 1-month warning strike. Your take on that situation?
That take is very well, and I'm advertising it on national television. My colleagues are reckless with strikes. No apologies. As educated human beings, we should learn to do things more decently. And you know that some of my colleagues do dirty deals. This morning they shout about how very honest have they been, even in the disbursement of the monies. I'm sure you are familiar with the crisis in Ife, where I work, over distribution of EAA to academics. And some of the things that have come into the open, very shameful, very, very nauseating. You want to award, you want to give money to a colleague who has not done the work that you claim he has done. How about ASUU fought for the money. When ASUU fought for the money, the government said ASUU should distribute it in as a confetti to undeserving members. This current one is for 2019-2020 session. Kemi Rotimi taught 2 courses in each of the semesters, one in part 2, one in part 4. You now imagine a situation where somebody, because I'm an ASUU chieftain, for instance, but mind you, I'm not, and then you now conflate the thing that I did 7 courses. Whereas what is verifiable, you have only 4 courses. We put the 2 semesters together. A good number of ASUU members go to equity but without clean hands, to use legal jargon. So what's the big deal? They want to go on warning strike.
Anyway, thank you very much. Prof's point very well made on the issue of policing in Nigeria, Abba Kyari saga, and the ASUU strike. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor Kemi.